Family, what is going on? I think this is my first lesson on the channel ever where I'm playing something that's maybe a little bit more technical, and I'm actually pretty nervous because these days, as I'm sure those who are following the brand and the channel 180 Drums may have noticed, it's been a really long time since we've been putting up much of anything, but you're in a new series which is super exciting where we've got a whole list of crazy good players like Gunnar Olsen, Richie Martinez, Connor Dennis, J. Rod Sullivan, the list goes on and on. And today what I really wanted to do is break down something that I personally have been practicing. So these days when I get a chance to sit at the drums, which I'm sure many of you can relate, it's like maybe an hour at a time. So I'll get 60 minutes to play drums, and these days it's like an hour a week that I might get to play. So I've really got to make use of the practice time that I have, and while I get a little bit more time on the pad, I've really got to make sure that when I sit down at the drums, I like to pick one thing, and it's because there's a really great quote from Bruce Lee, the amazing mixed martial artist, who shared, "Don't fear the man who's practiced 10,000 different kicks." That would mean 10,000 different drum fills, rudiments, ideas. Fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. Now, if you already know that quote, that's awesome, but are you actually doing that in your drumming? Listen, I struggle with it too. I sit down at the drums, and what I usually want to do is just do a drum solo and start like practicing shedding ideas around the drums, and I make very, if any, progress, very little, if any, progress. So let me show you once more this cool little 16th note triplet, sextuplet style groove that I'm playing, and it's really heavily inspired by a video where I saw Vinnie Colaiuta sitting down with some band, and he kind of went into this like 16th note triplet feel, and it was amazing. So let me break it down really quick. I'm super rusty, I get such little time to play, but what we're gonna do in this lesson that's gonna be a ton of fun is I'm gonna play this groove, and I'm gonna show you guys how to play it, and then I'm going to, kind of in front of you, embarrass myself by trying to move it around the drums and show you quite literally how I would practice this, because I am practicing it right now. I've got that main groove down that you just heard me play in the intro, but outside of that, I'm pretty much trying to now, I'm going to be winging it in the lesson to figure out what can we do with bass drum placements? What can we do to move it around the drums? And I'm going to show you kind of my method for learning. Now, if you guys want more information, you can always head over to 180drums.com. We've got a ton of crazy deals right now and awesome resources that I think you're going to dig. So I am at 80 beats per minute. Let me play the example once more, and then we'll bring down the tempo. So here's 80 beats per minute. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the groove in a nutshell. Now here's the fun part where I see if I can explain this. So I'm going to play it at a bit of a slower tempo, and then I'm going to show you guys what's happening. But for now, here's the sticking. So we've got right, left, left, kick, right, left, kick, and then left, right, left, left. Right, left, kick. So it's a paradiddle-diddle, but instead of playing the last left hand, I'm changing it for bass drum. Right, left, left, kick, and then left, right, left. Let's see if that's right. That's it, okay? And there's a bass drum on 1, and then on the very last sextuplet of triplet, kick. So the way we're counting this as well, which I'm super nerdy, I like to think about things in terms of the actual subdivisions on paper. And if you haven't learned to read drums yet, it's actually super helpful, because in a second, I'm gonna show you how I would start to think about all the placements that we can do with our bass drum, all the placements that we can start to do with our hands and accents. And I personally like to write stuff down so I can look at it and then modify it and try different bass drum placements. And once you get the hang of doing that, you can start to kind of like come up with anything and get really creative. So let me play that pattern once more. I'm gonna play it nice and slow. And what we're hearing is 16th note triplets. So for some of you this might be easy, but even I've got to wrap my head around it sometimes. It's triplet, triplet. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. So what you're hearing with my sticks are the 8th notes. So we've got 1 and 2. So this is really slow. And in between that, every time I click my sticks, we're playing 3 notes. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and triplet and let 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 2 and a 3 and a 3 and a. All right, so it's super embarrassing sitting here counting that, but that's the pattern, and that's kind of how we break it down. Triplet, 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 triplet. So you'll also notice the accents on my hands is the very first time I play a right hand, the very next right hand after the beat of 2. So, and then that left hand comes down strong, and then the right hand comes down strong. Everything else is ghost notes. And what I'm kind of doing with my hands is I'm doing that molar stroke in between, so you get a tiny little bit of an accent, but not a huge accent. So it sounds like this. All right? So that's the groove in a nutshell, and then I'm just looping that. So what I'm trying to think about when I play this is really keeping those ghost notes super articulate and even, and I'm sure as I'm saying that I'm going to watch this back and cringe, but I'm trying to keep those ghost notes nice and low on the snare drum, really even sounding, because I actually want my hi-hat and my snare drum to sound like they're kind of one instrument. I want the volume of those notes to be super similar, so that you've kind of got this like ticket to ticket to ticket to ticket to ticket to ticket to cacket to ticket to ticket to ticket to cacket. So it's like really. Hopefully you guys get what I'm saying and it makes sense. Okay, so once you've got that down, what you would want to do, and you would sit and just practice that really slowly. Because at first you're trying to get the pattern in your head, and then once you've got that in your head, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to be playing this idea, but starting to play it with a metronome and with some time. So, you know, here's 60 beats per minute, so nice and slow. It's going to sound like this. 3 and 4 and. I've got to laugh because I said slow and that's still kind of fast, but that's what I would do. I'd play, you know, a bar of time and then go into a bar of the fill. So a full 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, triplet, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and I go back into time on the next bar and then play that pattern again. All right? So now, okay, this is where we're going to get a little more advanced for those of you who are like, come on, man, make this more challenging. The very first thing that I did just now when I was practicing this idea and trying to learn it is I moved my right hand over to the ride cymbal, and I was playing those accents that I mentioned to you on the hi-hat with the right hand on the bell and the rest of the notes on the bow of the ride cymbal to kind of get that like drier, crispier sound on the cymbal itself, and then that loud accent on the bell. So that would sound like this. I'll go back to, let's play that 70 beats per minute. And I really like to use a metronome once I start going with this stuff, just to make sure that I'm like really locking in with the click, because what I am hearing right now while I'm practicing this is that I'm kind of fighting the metronome on the bass drum and on the backbeat. So I'm trying to kind of tighten that up as I go. All right, so here's 70. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. All right, ride cymbal. Okay, so right away, hear how that started to sound kind of cooler because it almost creates a halftime feel with the accents like ding, 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 ding. Creates that kind of like weird pull. And you can also practice that same idea if you want to add in some independence with your left foot. So 1, 2, 3. Alright, so you can hear there with the left foot, I'm like quarter notes, struggling to do it, 8 notes, and then I was playing the upbeats. Alright, so there's one idea. The next thing that I'd practice with this idea right away is trying some different stuff with the bass drum. So, actually, you know what, before we even do that, what if you just moved your left hand around a little bit, but you didn't change the pattern? So we're playing the exact same sticking, right, left, kick, left, right, left. But instead of always being snare drum left hand, right hand on the hi-hat, the best thing to do with any exercise is just see if you can keep that pattern, but start to move your hands around just a little bit. Keeping the bass drum in the same spot, we won't change anything else. You could explore accents, but let's just explore what's called voicings. So check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, starting to try and sound all fancy now. That's playing the same thing, but I'm moving around, and if you're like, Jake, that's super tough, I can't do that yet, that's a really good starting place. You'll notice one thing you could do is just move everything to the hi-hats except the backbeat. That's one idea. You can then try exploring some accents. So the next thing you could work on is just trying to move those around a little bit. I'm about to fail, but let's try it. Alright, I don't really like the way that sounds, but you can kind of explore some of those ideas and get creative. And then you saw me moving it around the drums. Let's just try that for a second. We'll keep the backbeat, but just moving it around. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so not necessarily loving any of those things right away, but what is really cool and a super important thing to do is when you're playing something like this, at any point, if you fumble when you try to play something, the whole goal is to go back to that thing and figure it out because you've exposed, here is something that I can't play, and that's the kind of stuff that I would sit on and find. Now, I'll be real transparent here. One of the things that I struggle with is I can learn something like what I just showed you guys pretty quickly, but there's a difference between learning something and then making it really sound and feel good. And my temptation is always, I kind of learn that idea and then I just move on. I'm like, cool, I got that, let's move on to the next thing. But the truth is, I have like scratched the tip of the iceberg on what we can do with this idea because as I just mentioned, you can move it around the drums, but then you can change accents, and then you can start messing with the bass drum. So here is how we could explore some bass drum placements. Go back to the hi-hats and just start to think about what are some options you could do with the kick, all right? 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there were some cool ideas in there. There's a lot of like fumbling around. I would never try and learn these things by playing it at that speed. I would turn it down to a slower tempo for myself where I'm comfortable and really make sure that I'm not just playing bass drum notes that are overlapping with, let's say, my left hand or my right hand, and they're not really well synced up. So a really good exercise is to even go like this. Just practicing playing a ghost note with the snare drum and the bass drum at the same time. Hitting the bass drum hard, but playing a ghost note, so that when you're playing this pattern and you're trying to move those ghost notes around, or you're trying to move the bass drums around, you're not kind of messing up with the left hand. Alright, so you can start to explore some different ideas. I think we should cap it there because there's a ton of ideas. So let me just play this for a second as I play you guys out. Now, before you go, make sure you head over to 180drums.com. We've got like some crazy stuff going on with this left hand course that we've got. So if any of you find your left hand struggling with ghost notes or even just being able to move things around the drums, you're gonna absolutely love this course. We've got an independence course so that you can do all that crazy left foot stuff that we were just talking about, as well as how to do drum solos, how to think about the drums. So head over to 180 Drums, check all that out. And if you've got any questions, feel free to email us. My email is jake@180drums.com. I'd actually love to hear from you. And the last thing I'll share is make sure that if you learn this, tag us on Instagram, share a video, and we'll make sure that the team reposts it because we love getting to see what you guys are working on. Okay, let me turn it up to 90 beats per minute. Let's hear what that sounds like, and then I'll play us out. 1, 2, and 3, and